Elfen Lied is a love story. It deals with mature and heavy topics like discrimination, abuse, and the value of life. It's a show that at its core is fundamentally designed to make you question your own moral principles.
What does the fate of my balls have to do with the fate of mankind?
Elfen Lied was released in 2004 by Studio Arms, a studio famous for things I can't talk about here. It's a fairly loose adaptation of a first-time author's manga, which hadn't finished when production of the anime started. The stuff that had been written was condensed into 13 episodes that concluded with an anime original ending. And make no mistake, people ate it up. It was one of the best-selling anime releases in the Western weeb world, and it did well enough in Japan to get an OVA and a Blu-ray re-release some years later. People seem to really love this show, and many still do, so it's gotta be pretty good, right?
Wrong!
Edgy. What is edgy? Is Shadow the Hedgehog edgy? How about Berserk? What about that time in Justice League where Aquaman had to cut off his own hand to save his son? Is that edgy? Or is that just dark? Does dark equal edgy? No one can agree on what edgy actually means. We can't even agree if it's good, neutral, or inherently bad. And the reason is that, well, it's just hard to explain. There's no set formula for determining edginess. It's more of a, well, you'll know it when you see it kind of thing. But even then, there's no guarantee that we're both gonna see the same thing. This is a bit of a problem because the best word I can use to describe Elfen Lied is edgy. So for the sake of clarity, let's define our terms. Dark is when a story has sex, drugs, and violence. And it's more dark the more sex, drugs, and violence the story has. And when it has a real lot of sex, drugs, and violence, it's edgy. Are there flaws with this logic? Yeah, probably, but look, we'll get to it later, okay? First, we need to talk about the story. A horny naked chick with invisible arms leaves a secret research facility in a mostly peaceful breakout. She takes a 50 cal like a champ and falls into the ocean. Her body then washes up on shore and is discovered by the MC and his girlfriend/cousin.
For Dixie's land we take our stand.
The Little Mermaid has severe brain damage, no memories, and can only utter a single word, like a Pokemon. Man, what is it with these cutesy anime girls saying words that start with N? The MC adds New to his Pokedex and hides her from the police looking for this missing person because, Meanwhile, the facility's special forces, and I do mean special, search the beach for Lucy, who ran away from her new home after the guy yelled at her. By the way, Lucy is still inside of New and comes out whenever she hits her head too hard or we need the plot to move on. Anyway, she kills one of the bad guys, but she turns back into New before finishing off the other guy, who is a genuine psychopath. Some homeless girl saw the fight and gets added to the MC's harem because her mom doesn't like her all that much, and her new stepdad likes her a little too much. The research facility decides to send a fellow Diclonius to deal with Lucy. It doesn't go too well, and she ends up losing all of her limbs, but she still gains a spot in the MC's harem. Oh, and that one guy Lucy didn't kill, he got some upgrades, but just chills out on the beach, waiting for Lucy to show up again so he can kill her. But when the MC and his cousin GF go back to school, they find out their professor knows New. So they dump her on him until the MC realizes he really should have asked more questions, because as it turns out, this professor is the son of the head of the research facility that Lucy escaped. Rather than send Lucy back to his pops, he knocks her out and tries to knock her up so their kids can either kill all of humanity or infect them with the virus that creates more Dicloniuses. Diclonii? It's probably that one. She kills him like 15 seconds later. There's a bunch of slice of life shenanigans that we're just gonna skip over for the sake of brevity. At the end, another Diclonius is sent after Lucy, along with a small army the research facility didn't feel like using before. The good lolly fights the bad lolly, and the MC finally remembers that he actually met Lucy way back in the day. Turns out, he was her first real friend, but it didn't work out. And he's still into her, by the way, because, well, you know, you never forget the first person who murders your family.
became a girl boss?
Back in the present, it all comes to an end with a fight between our mentally disabled heroine and her physically disabled adversary. Lucy loses to the lolly, but the research people stuck a bomb in this sadistic chick back when she was still a baby to keep the head scientist in check, since she's actually his daughter. They blow up, Lucy fights the people who hadn't died yet, and it concludes with a silhouette of some lady showing up at the MC's house sometime later. I wonder who that could be. From what I've seen, there are two camps when it comes to this anime. You're either gonna think it's a masterpiece that uses gore, nudity, and traumatic events to tell a story which challenges the way you view others and maybe even yourself. Or you'll turn 15. Elfen Lied is not deep. It's not complicated. It's more like a story that says, maybe humanity is bad? Elfen Lied involves themes of discrimination, social alienation, identity, prejudice, revenge, abuse, jealousy, regret, and the value of humanity. That's a lot of themes for a 13-episode series. So it's no surprise they're all surface level or poorly fleshed out. Let's take the most obvious one first. The Diclonius species is hated and feared by humanity because they have horns on their head, and it's not okay to discriminate against horned people. I mean, yeah, they also have these invisible arms that can cut through steel, which they use to kill anyone, even their own family or complete strangers, without a single shred of remorse because they are born with a fundamental hatred for humanity, but that's no reason to be a bigot. Do better.
Racism.
Being serious for a moment, why would you not discriminate against these demons? The show just assumes you'll agree. It even tries to avoid giving you a real reason by showing you just how bad people can truly be. Look, these kids beat a puppy to death just to bully little girl Lucy, so it's only natural for her to paint the walls with their insides? Now, I know she goes on a killing spree and brutally murders innocent people, literally just minding their own business and being happy with their families, but like, think of the puppy. And don't even try to justify this by bringing up the researchers doing their cruel test because one, that didn't happen to her yet, and two, that same sadistic facility is run by a Diclonius. Nana is the only Diclonius that doesn't actively kill all of the people she meets, but she's the exception to the rule. There is no reason not to discriminate against them. Based on everything the show shows, these things should be killed on sight. End of discussion. At least, that's what I thought initially. But it was around maybe the 5th or 6th uncensored group bathing session when I really started to question my position and see the light. This is how Elfen Lied explores its many themes. By that I mean, it doesn't. It's all just a superficial ploy to create shocking moments. Sometimes these moments are gore-oriented, like most of the stuff with Lucy, but a lot of the times, these moments are taboos and abuses that could be completely removed without changing the story at all. For example, we eventually meet a homeless girl named Mayu who left her home because her stepfather continuously abused her, and her own mother blamed her for it all. This sexual abuse is certainly something that shocks the senses, but once the scene plays out, it's done. It has no impact on anything else. Mayu's parents don't care that she ran away, and they never try to track her down. Her mother even lets Kota adopt her, and her rapist stepdad apparently doesn't care that this girl he's been abusing is now out of his control and could potentially get the cops involved at any moment. None of this makes sense. Like, she's 14. Does her school not care that she hasn't shown up in like weeks? Did she really not have a single friend that could help her out besides some random dog? Mayu's abuse never comes up again after episode 5. She could have just been a homeless orphan from the start. But why wasn't she? Well, because that's not shocking enough on its own. You know how in horror movies, characters have to be dumb, otherwise nothing horrific happens? It's same idea here. It wouldn't be a dark and disturbing anime unless there's a bunch of dark and disturbing moments. How do you get that? The easiest way is to just make most of the characters do shocking things. It doesn't even have to make sense because that's not the point. These characters aren't meant to be realistic or even consistent. They aren't even allowed to interfere with the main character unless there's some way to have a new girl join his harem. Remember when the police were a factor?
忘れた方が君のためだよ。
Elfen Lied is designed around shocking visuals instead of logical cause and effect. Once you get the shocking visual for the episode, then it's just time to work backwards from the next shocking visual and bend the story to get to that point. Maybe it's murder, maybe it's sexual abuse, or maybe it's forbidden love. It doesn't really matter so long as we get the money shot. And once we do, we just keep moving towards the next thing. Maybe rip off more body parts along the way. Oh, but don't worry, we can always count on the show to break up the bloodshed with more pointless nudity and a thinly veiled fetish here and there. Question, is there a reason every Diclonius in the facility is female, naked, and usually a child? Oh, there is. It's for shock value. The only time the answer isn't shock value is when the answer is ecchi stuff. Why are all of the people who get involved with Kota women? You know why. Why does Nu want to constantly bathe with all the characters? You know why. Why does she aggressively fondle other women? Why does she make Kota fondle her, even though she has the mental capacity of a toddler? You know why. Elfen Lied is edgy, but it's not Black Lagoon edgy or even Cyberpunk Edgerunners edgy. It's Happy Sugar Life edgy. Nemosine edgy. It doesn't tell a compelling story in a brutal, dark world. It has nothing meaningful to say about any of the topics it covers other than people are bad. But sometimes, people can be good too. Anyone who claims Elfen Lied is a show that makes you think didn't think about it for more than 5 seconds. The writing is atrocious. All the characters are just bland and annoying, and they all act like idiots when they aren't doing exactly what the plot needs them to do, so the story doesn't end immediately. Edgy doesn't mean bad. It just means you should expect certain things like violence and graphic content. But there's a reason a lot of people use edgy in a derogatory way. Most things that are called edgy suffer from the same problem. They're trying too hard to be mature, and in the process, they lose sight of what makes a story mature. It's not being dark. It's not sex, drugs, and violence, it's the quality of the writing. This means taking the proper time to explore all of the interesting ideas that get raised along the way, having multiple unique perspectives to tease out a central theme, treating the story and the characters attached to it with respect. It doesn't have to be dark, it can be uplifting. But if you decide to go in a darker direction, then you still need to cover the basics of storytelling. Edgy stories don't do that. Which is why, despite being filled with adult-oriented content like sex, drugs, and violence, they feel so childish. Like a kid in an MW2 postgame lobby shouting all manner of profanity. He might think he's an adult, but it's just laughable. No one is taking it seriously. That's what Elfen Lied is. A story no one takes seriously. You have to turn your brain off to accept all the plot contrivances and ridiculous scenarios it throws at you. Character development might as well be called character dismemberment. Time that should have been dedicated to debating the various perspectives raised by the show is instead spent on fan service. And I don't just mean the nudity, I mean the violence too, and the abuse stuff as well. It's all fan service. It doesn't serve any higher purpose besides being shocking in the moment. And you know what? That's fine. If you know me, you know I like my edgy 80s schlock, my edgy 90s schlock. And now, despite everything I just said, I want you to know I like my edgy 2000s schlock too. I don't like Elfen Lied for its characters. I don't like it for its world building. I don't like it for its commentary on the human condition. I like it for being what it is, an unapologetic, hyper-violent, offensively shocking, edgy anime. Plus the opening is a banger. How about you let me know what you think of Elfen Lied, and until next time, Ave Maria, Deus Vult, and here's the real question, who's the better Lucy?